trying to draw attention to the fact that he's considered like an astrophysicist. Okay, and I'm hanging out at Nassau Community College, which I got to be honest, as shocking as it may sound, there is an intellectual gap between astrophysicism and the fact that I majored in Super Mario Brothers. So understand, okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson, we have a relationship. It's a cartoony one because he comes on the show and hangs out, and he's usually friendly. Like, he'll go out drinking with the staff after the show because I take the crew out on Saturday nights, and he'll usually come out for a round and just joke around and talk about the show and tell us stuff. But he was on CBS. They were talking about the moon. Sean Duffy announcing earlier in the week, we want to put a nuclear reactor on the moon. Sean Duffy, who is going to be our guest this hour, he is the transportation secretary and the acting head of NASA. Okay, he was walking us through the process of why this is a thing and how it came to be. I want to start there in the conversation, and we're going to work our way up to Neil deGrasse Tyson. And the teachable moment is going to be about self-awareness in the media. So there's a payoff for everybody involved, whether you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, whether you run the planetarium like Neil deGrasse Tyson, or you get stoned and listen to Dark Side of the Moon at the Pink Floyd Laser Light Show like most of my fans. Here is Duffy, clip 17.
So on the moon, I don't think a lot of people realize there's ice. Ice means water. We do have some solar, but if you want sustainable life on the moon, you need an energy source. So we're going to bring fission to the moon's surface to power our base. It makes complete sense. Now, some might say, well, the launch is somewhat complicated, right? These are not active. They're not live. When we launch them into space, we can do it safely. By the way, we have submarines and aircraft carriers that operate on nuclear energy as well. But this is a key component. If we're going to get to the moon and then get to the Mars, we're going to have to figure this technology out.
Okay, so we're going to get to the moon, we're going to get to Mars, we got to figure out the technology, we got to get to the moon, we got to get to Mars. Okay, so far so good, not a big deal. Neil deGrasse Tyson comes on because he's like the guy you book. Something's happening in space.
It's all over now.
And he comes down and yucks it up and talks to you about the moon, does a couple of card tricks in the break room. He's a fun guest, like a super fun guest to have on. He corrects me probably 612 times a show. I'm not making that up. And that's fine just to say. But here is Neil on CBS. They're talking to him about colonizing the moon. He wants to colonize the moon. They feel like this is the next frontier in the space race. It's going something out there will be dominant. Satellite team, maybe this has to do with missile defense, maybe this has to do with dissemination of information, and streaming, stuff not just I don't understand, so I'll stop talking. But that being the motivation, okay, we're describing this as colonizing the moon. We'll be the first people to settle it. CBS brings on Neil deGrasse Tyson, a brilliant black astrophysicist, and decides to make this about race. Okay, in a moment that has absolutely nothing to do with race. Why? Because there's nobody living on the moon. Bingo, man, bingo. Watch Neil. Clip 19.
If we want to keep growing our population, or if we want to live forever, all right, we're gonna need another planet.
So is that the moon? Because I
don't want to live on the moon.
Right? Will it serve as a functional life source eventually for human beings? And B, we know how the age of colonialism worked on this planet. Should we be trying to colonize and saying that there's a keep-out zone that not other countries can participate in?
Is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. Everyone in this room is now done for having listened to it.
He's straight up trying to throw Neil and alley-oop on racism, except there's nobody there to be racist against. Well, black man, we know colonization didn't go so well for your people the last time we tried this sort of thing. Why the hell would you be on board with going to the moon? Because there's nobody there to colonize, you jackass. But this is the bigger problem about self-awareness.
Gentlemen, we've just received a PhD in stupidity.
Okay, I am woke and I love it. You know who didn't love it? His entire audience did not love it. Howard became the thing he hated. Okay, he rose to power by railing against the elites, sticking it to the man. It was kind of a Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack thing. Hey, I'm in the country club and I'm making fun of everybody. Nobody's safe when I'm here. Okay, and the working man loved that. You're driving to work in a van, okay, to go work a carpentry gig, an electrician gig, whatever you were doing, elevator repairs, you're a cop, you're a fireman, you're delivering mail, you drive a UPS truck,
right.
you deliver auto parts, whatever it is you do. Do you drive a cab like I did?
Turn left.
Whatever you do, okay, you are a working class person listening to Howard Stern, and you love the fact that he had the relationship he did with the little guy. Okay, Trump came along and multiplied that by 1 billion. He became the president of the United States not once, not twice. And for a guy who fancied himself the king of all media, Howard Stern, imagine how hard it crushed his ego to know that Donald Trump was 1 trillion times more relevant and omnipotent than Howard Stern ever was. There are people walking around remote islands in the world with a leaf over their nuts right now who know Donald Trump's name. Okay, I promise you, nobody listening under 45 knows Howard Stern's name, maybe 40. Okay, he's not remotely as relevant as Trump, but I think on some level it killed his ego so much that the only thing he can do was denigrate it. Denigrate Trump's success. Well, it's Putin, it's white supremacy, it's racism.
Turn left.
Okay, but what he didn't realize is he was denigrating his entire audience along the way. He became the thing he stood to hate. And I think it gobbled him up. We were talking about this on Jesse Waters' show last night. He went from the king of all media to the Prince Harry of all media, a whiny, woke gazillionaire. Okay, that no one could take seriously anymore. We used to abide the wig. Nobody made a big deal out of it. We'd forgive him for firing the good joke writers on the show. Okay, it didn't really matter.
Go straight.
Okay, Artie was a mess, let him go. Jackie wanted more money, I guess you're not going to pay him. These things went on, okay, and you abided all of it because he still had that relationship with the audience. Okay, that relationship isn't there anymore because he became everything they hate. And that's the ultimate lesson in self-awareness. We all have things we do correct. There's a reason we become popular. It's because specific people support us. I couldn't turn around right now and start making fun of chubby chasers. If it wasn't for chubby chasers, I never would have went on a date in my life. Okay, but I have the self-awareness to know that, which is why I'm not making fun of the chubby chasers, and I'm still not hitting the gym.
You're killing yourself the way you eat. Y'all fat look at you.
The host who always has gifts for his listeners.
Just some grass, a few uppers, and a little nose candy. Nose candy? Cocaine.
It's Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon.
Go straight.
Hey, it's your radio buddy Jimmy Fallon in the house, and let's talk about Madison Trust, because it is time to take the training wheels off your IRA.
Stay right.
Stop letting Wall Street call the shots and upgrade to a Madison Trust IRA. It is a type of self-directed IRA, which allows you to invest in what you believe in. So we're talking about real estate, your buddy startup, crypto, cattle. Move the money, baby. Doesn't matter. With a Madison Trust IRA, you are in control. Go to MadisonTrust.com. That is MadisonTrust.com, and take charge today. Madison Trust, your partner in financial freedom. Results may vary. Consult with a financial professional.
Greg is a real Prevagen user, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. 8 years ago, I just felt like I was on my game.
And exit right.
I started taking Prevagen, and I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. Give it a try.
Exit
I want it to help you just like it has helped me.
Prevagen at stores everywhere without a prescription. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Testimonialist was compensated for their time.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. We're dedicated to serving people 50 and up, like me. Our needs are different. Big Wireless wants us in an unlimited plan, but if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used. At Consumer Cellular, we're focused on affordable, reliable plans, including data that suits your needs, not ours. Our plans start at just $20, and you'll get the best customer service in the business.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Most people have no idea there's an invisible gap in their home's protection. This invisible threat is house stealing. Con artists pick a house. They transfer the deed of this house into their name by obtaining the forms, using the fake IDs, and filing the paperwork with proper authorities. Now they own the home. Protect your home from this invisible gap. Check on your home's title right now at HomeTitleLock.com. Be sure to use promo code RADIO, and they will send you a complete title scan of your home's title. And your first 30 days of triple lock title protection is free. HomeTitleLock.com.
Always find KRMG in your pocket
pocket. The KRMG app, a free download for both Apple and Android.
Every moment. At Moody's Jewelry, we offer timepieces crafted to do more than just tell time. They capture it.
Here we go.
Marking a milestone, celebrating an achievement, or giving a gift that lasts a lifetime. Our watches are designed to be passed down for generations because the best moments in life deserve more than just moments. They deserve a masterpiece. Find your perfect timepiece today at Moody's Jewelry, where time meets elegance. Moody's Jewelry, located and trusted since 1944 in Tulsa's most fashionable shopping destinations. Find hours and locations at moodysjewelry.com.
There's never a good time for your garage door to break, whether you're rushing to work or you're trying to get the kids to school. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello at A1 Garage Door Service. We know how much you rely on your garage door. That's why we offer same-day repairs, because life doesn't wait, and neither should you. When your garage door stops working, trust A1 to get you moving again fast. From repairs to upgrades, it's A1 from day one. Call A1 Garage Door Service today.
Guys, did you know your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED? And right now, Revive Men's Health Tulsa will check your testosterone for free. They've helped thousands of men since 2011 feel and perform better. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Schedule your free testosterone test, exam, and consultation today. Call 918-488-0000. That's 918-488-0000. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at EasterSeals.com.
The success you've already had matters at University of Maryland Global Campus because we're a school for real life. An accredited state university, UMGC lets you earn up to 90 credits toward a bachelor's for prior learning and relevant life and work experience, or transfer up to 12 credits toward a master's. We offer affordable tuition and online and hybrid courses. Classes start August 13th. Apply now and save with no application fee. Learn more at umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by Shaft.
Breaking news happens, it happens here.
Voters overwhelmingly approved a $52 million bond package.
Remember, it happens on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk.
Bang, there it is. Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon. Sean Duffy, Transportation Secretary, he's showing up next. We're still chatting about the census because Trump wants to count Americans in the Senate. Could you imagine such a thing? A census that counts American citizens. I like it, but not everybody does.
It's people with a dirty mind that think like that.
I'll say. John is not one of them. He's out in the LOZ, the Lake of the Ozarks. Yo, John, my man, you there? Oh, John, I might have lost you. I was excited to talk to you. We'll get him back. John is, everybody who listens on KRMS in the Lake of the Ozarks, I consider a varsity caller for 2 reasons. 1, they either really make brilliant, well-thought-out points, or 2, they're hammered on a pontoon boat.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
I've told you this. In the history of Jimmy Fallon road gigs, like events I've done, the drunkest, rowdiest crowd I have ever played was at the Encore Resort in the Lake of the Ozarks. Me and Jenny were there. They were hammered. Like, when I say smashed, like something straight out of the Blues Brothers. We should have had chicken wire over the stage. There was a guy at the end who had just bought the new model Corvette. He had bought a blue one. And he's like, I want you to drive my car. I'm like, I'm not driving your car, sir. We've had about 300 beers because people here don't know the difference between hospitality and a hazing ritual. Okay, honestly, that's what the LOZ was. It reminded me of East Texas with more pontoon boats. And we had been forced to drink our ourselves senseless, like we were pledging a fraternity. This guy was like, "You're going to drive I want you to drive my car. You were driving." I'm like, "I am not driving your car." I finally got someone else to drive his car with my hat on and come back and say it was me. And I took a picture and I was like, "Hey, where'd you go? I drove your car. Where the hell were you?" They were that smashed. I loved these people. They were wonderful people. So I hold their callers in very high regard. Unfortunately, that misconnection puts us 35 seconds from a commercial break, which means now nobody gets a call through. I know, it's upsetting to me too, kids, but guess what? The man with the best hair in Donald Trump's cabinet, the man who is the acting head of NASA, the man taking us back to the moon, Sean Duffy, is in the on-deck circle, and we're going to talk aliens, we're going to talk NASA, we're going to talk United Airlines ground stops, how that affects the alcohol consumption in first class. We got real questions that need to be asked. We'll answer them with Sean Duffy when we come back on Fox Across America.
We are 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Tulsa's KRMG News starts now.
Live from the KRMG 24-hour Fox News Center, I'm Kyle High with team coverage of our top stories. Former Muskogee County Sheriff Charles Pearson has been charged with 6 felony counts. Pearson served as Muskogee County Sheriff from 2000 to 2026. According to an affidavit in June, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations was asked to help the Sheriff's Office investigate a crash in eastern rural Muskogee.
Rerouting.
Pearson pulled out of a gas station and started following a truck. He eventually accelerated and passed the truck, cutting in front of it and slamming on the brakes, causing a crash. The document says Pearson tried to unhook the boat that was attached to the back of the victim's truck, but was not able, and threatened one of the victims before he drove away. Pearson is charged with leaving the scene of an injury accident, threatening a violent act, reckless driving, improper stop on a roadway, and driving with an expired license. Attorney General Gentner Drummond is leading a coalition of AGs trying to seek answers about donations to wildfire victims. Right. Drummond says he's been trying to get a hold of fire aid regarding the $100 million that was raised for victims of wildfires in Los Angeles County. Drummond says numerous reports have raised concerns that fire victims have not received any assistance from fire aid or the frontline nonprofits and organizations that partner with to distribute direct aid. 14 other states are joining in on the letter. You can read Drummond's full statement at krmg.com. And Sapulpa's head wrestling coach has been arrested for an alleged inappropriate relationship with a student.
Cody Fuller is accused of sending nude pictures and touching a student's private area. Police reports say Fuller would send illicit pictures of himself to the underage student on Snapchat, and he kissed and touched her inappropriately on several occasions, including trips to area tournaments. They say all this started when the student was a 17-year-old junior at Sapulpa. Several other students allegedly witnessed the inappropriate behavior, and it was eventually reported to police. Matt Hudson, 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk.
Tulsa's most accurate and dependable forecast is coming up next. KRMG News Times currently 7:32.
We didn't take to retirement like we thought we would.
We got bored.
So I thought I'd book a trip to Italy to celebrate retiring.
We didn't speak Italian.
We didn't then. We do now. Because of Babbel.
Babbel is the refreshingly easy-to-use app for learning a new language. With more than a dozen languages to choose, Babbel uses immersive lessons to teach you vocabulary and grammar in a way that sticks.
We set a goal for 15 minutes per day.
That's all we needed.
And Italy was just...
Bellissima.
That means beautiful.
In Italian.
From interactive lessons led by experts to conversation tips on real-life topics, Babbel's revolutionary teaching style keeps language in your head and...
All about me from Dallas, Texas, and I listen to Downtown Hot Radio.
See, and the reminder to not abandon yourself.
We're doing with those seconds or hours in our life that can cause quite important or profound shifts in our identity. And I mean, the most clear example for that for me in my life was a period of a few years where I was fairly sick in a chronic sense, not in an acute sense, in the sense of needing to be in a hospital and kind of pain stuff going on, and this quite seriously affected my ability to live in that space, either mental or temporal where I was producing things and active and busy, and where my mind was able to dictate where my body went. There it kind of very much switched over and switched around, and my body was in the driving seat, whether or not I wanted to respond to that. And yeah, there was I certainly remember a lot of mental and kind of emotional resistance to this idea that this had changed somehow, and a lot of that had to do with my relationship with time and the extent to which I could push through things, the extent to which I could spend long amounts of time working versus needing to take breaks. And again, going back to this idea that, in certain conceptions and in this kind of productivity space, the idea that, self-care or taking time for yourself is somehow seen as weakness or as something which isn't productivity. It's the time in between you doing productive things. And I think that period forced me to kind of rethink that in a little bit of a way. Just as, in the cliche that the beats in between the notes in music are just as important as the notes themselves. Yeah, so it's a kind of similar thing going on there.
One of the problems that I think millennials in particular face is that because we are optimized as mini adults trying to get into college, our lives become college resumes, especially bourgeois middle class millennials. There's a point where there was nothing that you were encouraged to do if it wasn't, worthy of your resume in some way. And so it's difficult to remember the things that maybe you like to do because they were things that you ought to do or things that you must do or things that the fun part of it was evacuated by becoming formalized in some way, whether basketball became something that you played in leagues and on club teams and competitively instead of just playing basketball with friends for no reason other than because you liked it. And so I think that a lot of people never necessarily developed actual hobbies or actual leisure activities, or if they acquired them later in life, it was very superficially as something to like Instagram about. And so there's not actually a deep investment, or like you don't actually like it for any other reason other than you like being able to post on Instagram that you are the sort of person who does this activity. And so for me, I think of my hobbies as things that I really have done since I was young and that I didn't do for probably about 12, 15 years. And I'm returning to those things. And I think, if we're talking about how to live the good life, part of it is study after study has shown that like doing things with others, doing things with your family, and then doing things for others makes you happier. We know this. Like all of us have read these studies. But at the same time, we resist that over and over again because the imperative, both financial and societal, is to work instead.
In Western economies, particularly, I'm thinking of the United States, we are very much the products of our environment, and the way we think and our attitudes and our behaviors are very much driven by kind of what our larger social or cultural norms are. And when you live in a society that values productivity, that talks all the time about, being identified with work and what did you do today? What do you do? It's very difficult to get out of that kind of productivity mindset when we think about other kinds of time. The Greeks had two ways of describing time, and one they called chronos time, and it's the time that we experience. It's linear, it's moment to moment. It's you think about chronology. It's the time of the clock, and I'm late, I'm early. But there was this other kind of time that they described. They called it kairos time, and it's the time of the eternal present. And when you think about it, that really is the only place that we ever live. Human beings we live moment to moment to moment. So the chronos time gives you a sense of how the moments string together, but our experience of time is always now. And that's sort of the beauty of flow, is getting into that, really connecting with that spirit of the nowness of whatever it is you're doing or not doing.
My name is Alex Sager, and I'm an associate professor of philosophy at Portland State University. I actually think it's unfortunate that more philosophers aren't writing about leisure, because leisure is really, it's what you do when you're freed from necessity. It's when you are doing things that you consider to be really important in themselves. And I like to sometimes think about what if we took our society and instead of structuring it around work, we thought instead, how would you structure society around leisure? And I think that raises a lot of really kind of fundamental questions about things like education, about the structure of the workplace, and about the structure of our political institutions.
So talk to me a little bit more about that. What if I were to say to you, sketch out a day in the life of, what would that life look like if it was one that was fundamentally built around leisure first?
Well, I think, when you talk to people, often, the first question you ask is, what do you do? And, what people are looking for an answer is, what is your job? What are you paid to do? And, I think often that the assumption is work is something you only do because you need to do it. It's necessary to survive. Now, I think if we started to think about this from the perspective of leisure instead of work, I think the first thing we would ask is the work we're doing genuinely valuable? Is it something that we think contributes to making people's lives better or enriching our lives? And I think we think very, very carefully about how we spend our day. I think there's a misconception. I think often leisure is thought of as rest, and something you do or you don't do. It's idleness or rest or laziness. And I think leisure should really be understood as what you do when you really have a choice. And when you start kind of applying that view to your day, I think it's going to change very much, how you relate with others, how you break up your time, how you focus in your schooling, your work, and things like that. I think it would be pretty different.
Well, leisure is often taken up as a luxury, right? Like it's a sign of success that when one can afford to not be at work, one can be at leisure. And so we've decided that the idea of leisure first, in a way, sounds very aristocratic, frankly. I mean, to think of it in those terms, but what you're really talking about is how do we think about the things that we value. And so how do you respond to this idea that leisure is something that we can do when work is done?
I think you said something very important. I mean, leisure, at least in the philosophical tradition, it is an aristocratic notion. If we go back to the ancient Greece, we look at somebody like Aristotle, and it's interesting because the ancient Greeks defined work as the lack of leisure. So leisure was actually the dominant term, and then to not have leisure was considered to be it was considered to be the state of a slave.
Stay right.
And these were slave-owning
right.
societies in which a lot of the labor was done. It was compulsory labor.
Turn right.
So I think there is a really kind of strong aristocratic sense in that. But I'm a political philosopher, and we spend a lot of time trying to think about how the world should be or could be. And I think one thing, it's kind of a major question of social justice, is how could we generalize, this freedom so more people would be able, to make it primary in their lives.
Well, that is part of the challenge. I mean, in doing this episode, and thinking about the problem of how to come at a place where one can find a place for leisure, we end up talking a lot about work and about capitalism. And so one of the challenges, of course, is that the idea of the amount of work that needs to be done in order to make life livable has to be done by someone. And that work is often taken up by, it's taken up by women, whether when we're talking about the domestic sphere, for example, or it's taken up by poor people, helping to make rich people's lives more comfortable. And so how are we meant to then think about what leisure for all looks like when our society is structured around this idea that work is for some and leisure is for others?
I think those are really good questions and really hard questions. I guess what I would say is, what's really, I think, key here is compulsion. I mean, you're absolutely right. A lot of people are compelled to work, and it's very inequitable. Who is compelled to work and who has the luxury to to choose what they want to do. At the same time, I would suggest that even necessary work can be leisurely, maybe not in our society, but at least in a more equitable society. And just to give an example, many of us we don't like to do household chores. We'd rather not have to wash our clothes or sweep the floors or do the dishes. But at the same time, you could do that sort of work in a way that if you value it, if it's for your home, for your environment, it can be done in a way that I think is compatible with leisure, because you're not being compelled by others to do it, but rather something you choose to do. And I also think there are a lot of jobs. I used to work in construction, in the summers, and I noticed at the time that it made an enormous difference, who you were working with, and what sort of boss you had. And construction, pouring concrete is what I did one summer. It wasn't really how I wanted to spend my life, but I will say that I felt that I was contributing something.
Go straight. Through
that work. I was doing something important. I was laying the foundation for somebody's house. And I think a lot of work, if we restructured society so there isn't this compulsion by economic need or by patriarchy or by other people forcing you to do it, but if you're able to choose to do it because you value it, that makes a real difference. And I think that sort of work actually is compatible with leisure. Leisure, understood broadly, is it's a huge part of our lives. It's part of our social lives, part of our political lives. I think that's something that often gets overlooked. One of the things that Aristotle pointed out is that politics depends on leisure. You can't have politics unless there are people who are free to reflect on what they actually want for their society. I think something else that's, I wouldn't say urgent, but that's, I think, really remarkable about this time is we really have an opportunity to move toward more of a society that focuses on leisure. This has been predicted for over 100 years. The idea that eventually people will be working a 15-hour work week. John Maynard Keynes predicted this, but you also see this in people like Bertrand Russell. And I think more than ever, there actually is the possibility. There's the economic efficiency there that people could work a lot less, at least in terms of compulsory work. And I think what we've done, and we've seen over and over again, is that employers have created jobs that often don't seem to be doing anything, or they're jobs that seem to actually be making people's lives harder rather than easier, or it seems to be busy work. And, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to think, we have all this technology. The wealth, of course, is grossly misdistributed. It's grossly unequal. But nonetheless, there is the wealth and there's the capacity for people to work less. And, I think this is a time we could sort of seize, the abundance and say, well, we have the abundance. We could do less, at least in terms of compelled work. How would we like to think of a society that is structured around this?
Leisure has always been, throughout history, the provenance of privileged men. When you look at the classic written about leisure, it's by Thorstein Veblen, The Theory of the Leisure Class. It wrote it in the 19th century. And he wrote, on page 2, he said leisure has always been, something that high class or high status men have had access to, and everybody else did all the work. He said all the drudge work was done by the servants, the slaves, and also all the women. So I think what's really important, and also all the women. So I think what's very important to understand is that women in particular have never had a history or culture or expectation of leisure. I mean, think about even the, kind of the famous adages, like women, from sunup to sundown, or woman's work is never done, and the best women were always busy and bustling around, even on Sunday, they're making the huge meal, and then they're ironing, and they're taking care of everybody else. They're taking people's emotional temperature. They're doing mental work if they're not only doing physical work. So women have always had this kind of expectation of kin work, care work, and frankly, never-ending work. I think that's one of the reasons why there's so much guilt around leisure for women, or guilt that they don't deserve it. And this was so interesting. So part of what I also came across these wonderful researchers that look at the gender aspect of leisure, feminist leisure researchers.
Stay right.
And one of the
then
things that
turn
they
right.
found, did this fascinating study, and they talked to women all around the world, and it didn't matter
right.
their culture or their background, their age, their ethnicity, religion, whatever, that typically women felt that they did not deserve leisure time, whereas men do. Particularly high status men, it's like, yeah, sure, I'm going to go down to the pub with my friends, or yeah, I'm going to go play golf all Saturday. Of course, I worked hard, I deserve this. Women didn't have that sense of deserving, even if they had worked like a full week, or they'd done all sorts of housekeeping and taking care of family. That's a full-time job. So they felt they didn't deserve leisure, and the only way they could actually get to having that kind of time is if they earned it. And the only way to earn it was to get to the end of their really long to-do list, which, if your to-do list looks anything like mine, it will never end. We will die, and we will have emails in our inbox, and we will have stuff to do on our to-do list.
Get ready to
So
turn right.
that women in particular have a very difficult time making
Turn
space,
right.
giving themselves permission, and feeling like there's permission in the culture around them to have leisure time.
Yeah, I always think about the cultivation of the 5-day work week, which was at the time, it was an accomplishment because before it was the 6-day work week or the 6.5-day work week, and it relax or restore or even make time for leisure in some way.
You have arrived at your destination.
Again, people, they're so cognizant of how little time that they have
finished.
that it feels like I can't commit to anything. I can't go and do this volunteer work on one of those days. They're so precious to me and so necessary. And so what places that have instituted a 4-day work week have found is that people make an incredibly, I don't want to use the word productive, but a really interesting use of that extra day, of that third day of the weekend. And whether that's, there are grandparents who really dedicate it to spending time with their grandkids because they can take, a day of childcare off of the parent in that scenario. Or there are people who are like, well, every Friday, this is just, I volunteer every Friday now. Or they use it for something, a hobby or a leisure activity that has always been something that they did maybe once a year, right? But now they actually get to feel dedicated and devoted and immersed in it. And I think it radically changes people's investment in themselves and their families, but also in society. We have these declining rates of participation in government volunteerism, in just volunteerism in general. Like in America, there are these problems right now finding enough volunteers to staff the volunteer firefighters that take care of more rural areas, or with the volunteer committees that help bolster smaller governments and smaller towns. They just can't find people who can make that commitment. And I don't think it's that we're selfish. I think that we don't have an adequate enough space to feel like we can dedicate ourselves.
I mean, at the end of the day, the question then becomes this question of the work, of this ability to think about the place of leisure. So after having written this essay and thought about this problem, and you're working on a book as well, where have you come to that's different, do you think, from where you started out?